He's home. Joe McCann has touched American soil, passport returned, cleared to walk free. And today of all days is Mother's Day. The cruelest possible timing for a mother who still doesn't know exactly what happened to her daughter in a luxury resort on the coast of Tanzania. And the internet has absolutely erupted. Because while Yolanda Endres is sitting somewhere in New Jersey this Mother's Day without her child, without answers, without Ashlee's engagement ring, without Ashlee's belongings, Joe McCann's lawyer is giving press statements to TMZ about how Joe was left on read. Let that sit with you for a moment. This is not a story that has reached its conclusion. Not even close. What we are watching unfold in real time is a collision between two completely different versions of the same tragedy, and somewhere buried beneath all the PR language, the legal maneuvering, and the social media silence, is the truth about what happened to Ashlee Robinson, the 31-year-old lifestyle influencer the world knew as Ashlee Jenae, on the night of April 8th into April 9th in Zanzibar, Tanzania. Let's go back to the beginning, just briefly, because context matters here. Ashlee and Joe had traveled to Tanzania to celebrate her 31st birthday. Her last Instagram post, uploaded April 5th, showed her feeding a giraffe, surrounded by rose petals spelling out HBD Ashlee. Her caption read, "Chapter 31, and I'm exactly where I need to be." That caption, those words, they will haunt you the more you learn. Because within days of writing them, she was gone. And the question of how and why remains one that no official has been willing to answer completely, publicly, and transparently. According to police accounts, witnesses at the Zanzibar hotel stated that the couple had been quarreling frequently from the moment they arrived on April 4th. Not just a single argument, not just a moment of tension during a birthday trip. Repeatedly, from day one, hotel management eventually intervened on the night of April 8th and separated the couple, moving Joe McCann to a different villa, a 10-minute walk from where Ashlee was staying. Hours later, a hotel worker found Ashlee Robinson unresponsive. Tanzanian police reported she was found in a closet with a belt around her neck. She was rushed to a local hospital, transferred again, and then declared dead on April 9th. Here is where the story splits into two tracks that cannot be reconciled. Tanzanian authorities have publicly stated they believe she died by suicide. Ashlee's family has stated, unequivocally, that this does not align with the woman they knew. Her father, Harry Robinson, said plainly, "Nothing about it makes sense. It just doesn't add up." Her mother, Yolanda Endres, told reporters, "She's never done anything that would ever lead me to believe that she would do something to harm herself like that." And then there is the preliminary death record, reportedly obtained by a local Tanzanian outlet, that listed Ashlee's cause of death as cerebral hypoxia due to strangulation and suffocation. Not listed as a self-inflicted wound. Strangulation and suffocation. That finding has not been independently verified, and official autopsy results have still not been publicly released. But that document exists. Someone wrote those words on an official form, and the family is not forgetting that. Now, let's talk about what brought us to this Mother's Day flashpoint. Because the timeline of communication, or more accurately, the breakdown of communication between Joe McCann and Ashlee's family is where the story becomes deeply disturbing, depending on which side you believe. According to Ashlee's mother, Yolanda, she first found out something was wrong when Joe called her and told her Ashlee was in the hospital. But here is the part that cut through to the bone. When Yolanda asked him when this had happened, Joe told her the incident had occurred 11 hours before he was calling her. 11 hours. Her daughter was lying in a hospital in Tanzania, and the man who was with her, the man who was supposed to be her future husband, had waited 11 hours to pick up the phone. And when he did call, he told her Ashlee was stable. She is not stable. She's gone. The next phone call Yolanda received was not from Joe. It was from the hotel. The hotel told her that her daughter had died. Let that timeline wash over you. Joe McCann called to say Ashlee was in the hospital and said she was stable. And the next voice Yolanda heard with news about her child was a hotel employee. After that, according to the family, the communication stopped. Harry Robinson told reporters bluntly, "The fiancé did not reach out to us at all." The family learned details about their daughter's final hours not from the man who was there, but through media reports, Tanzanian police press conferences, and hotel statements. This is the foundation of the Mother's Day clash we are unpacking today. Because now, weeks later, Joe McCann's lawyer is presenting an entirely different version of events, and the internet is not buying it. According to Joe's attorney, Edward Andrew Paltzik, here is what allegedly happened. Yolanda texted Joe on April 9th, the day of Ashlee's death, asking what happened. Joe's lawyer claims Joe responded promptly and appropriately despite being, quote, completely crushed by her death. And then, according to Joe's side, Yolanda never texted back. She left him on read, and because she never replied, Joe chose not to follow up, saying he wanted to respect the family's silence and give them space to grieve. His lawyer confirmed he would have responded if Yolanda had texted again. Read that again. He was waiting for her to text again. This is a woman who just lost her child. A child she had carried, raised, watched grow into a vibrant 31-year-old with a smile that lit up every photo. A woman who was already on the other side of the world from where her daughter took her last breath. Who could not board a plane and get there. Who was completely powerless. And the person who was physically present, the person who proposed to her daughter days before, was sitting in Tanzania waiting for Yolanda to double text him. The question the internet has been screaming is this: why was the burden of maintaining communication placed on the grieving mother? At what point in your understanding of human decency do you decide that a single text exchange is sufficient? That because one message went unanswered, you can go quiet? Grief does not respond on a schedule. Grief does not always let you text back. Sometimes grief makes you stare at a phone you cannot bring yourself to open because every notification might be another reminder that your daughter is not coming home. And while all of this was unfolding, Joe McCann was doing something else. He was active enough on social media to update his profile picture on X. He was present enough to make his accounts private. He was functional enough to be talking to lawyers and issuing carefully worded statements, but not functional enough, apparently, to call Ashlee's mother. Not functional enough to send a single message that said, Yolanda, I am here. I am not going anywhere. I will answer every question you have for as long as it takes. There is also the matter of the funeral. On May 5th, Ashlee's family laid her to rest in Paulsboro, New Jersey. The homegoing service that brought her community together to celebrate her life and grieve her loss. Joe McCann was not there. Sources close to the family confirmed he was not welcome and he did not attend. On that same day, he released a statement on X, his first public words since Ashlee's death. He wrote, "There are no adequate words to describe the total devastation, emptiness, and shock I feel after losing my best friend, confidant and fiancé." He described her as an angel who shined her light on everyone fortunate enough to be in her presence. He mentioned that what Ashlee desired most was to become a mother and raise a family together. He called her death an incomprehensible tragedy. The timing of that statement, released as her family buried her, without him present, drew immediate and fierce reaction online. Many questioned why, if he was truly devastated, he had said nothing for nearly 4 weeks. Others noted that the statement, while emotional in tone, contained no direct acknowledgement of the family's unanswered questions. No mention of the ongoing investigation. No mention of the incomplete autopsy results. No mention of the missing engagement ring, or the personal belongings that still have not been returned to Ashlee's family. Her father confirmed that when Ashlee's remains were returned to New Jersey, her personal items, including the engagement ring Joe placed on her finger days before she died, were not included. They remain unaccounted for. The family believes they may still be held by investigators, but no one has given them a definitive answer. And now this week, the story has reached a new boiling point. Because Joe McCann's passport has been returned. Tanzania has released him. He is back on American soil, arriving at an undisclosed location, and by all accounts he is free to resume his life. His lawyer made clear that Joe was never arrested, never charged, and cooperated fully with authorities throughout his nearly month-long stay in Tanzania. Tanzanian investigators have not publicly stated he has been cleared. They have not issued any formal conclusion to the investigation. But they handed him his passport, authorized his departure, and let him leave. For Ashlee's family, watching that happen on the approach to Mother's Day is something that defies words. Because the investigation is not closed. The family's independent autopsy results are still pending. The full Tanzanian autopsy results have never been shared with the family, only the confirmation that it was completed on April 14th. The surveillance footage from the Zanzibar hotel, which Harry Robinson specifically asked for and which he said will match the timeline, has not been publicly released. The family was told cameras were everywhere at that resort. Where is that footage? Why hasn't it been shared? And why, given all of these open threads, was the one person at the center of this investigation handed his passport and waved through? These are not conspiracy theories. These are the factual, documented gaps in this case that have not been addressed. And they are being amplified right now because today, Mother's Day, should have been a day Ashlee called her mom. Should have been a day Yolanda got flowers, or a FaceTime call, or heard her daughter's voice. Instead, Yolanda is spending this Mother's Day in a silence that no parent should ever have to endure. Now, there is a perspective that must be considered, even if it is uncomfortable. The version of events Joe's team is presenting. His lawyer says Joe was crushed. His lawyer says Joe responded when Yolanda reached out. His lawyer says Joe respected her silence out of consideration for her grief. His public statement describes his love for Ashlee in unmistakable terms. And Tanzanian authorities, who were on the ground, who seized his passport, questioned him, conducted an autopsy, and ultimately let him go, have not filed charges. They have not named him a suspect. Their initial position leaned toward ruling this a suicide. But here is the problem with simply accepting that version and closing the book. The preliminary medical record, listing the cause of death as strangulation and suffocation, contradicts a suicide by-belt narrative in ways that require explanation. The pattern of arguments witnessed by hotel staff across multiple days raises questions about the dynamics of this relationship that have not been fully answered publicly. The 11-hour gap before Yolanda was notified has never been satisfactorily explained. The missing personal belongings have not been returned. The hotel surveillance footage has not surfaced. And the family's independent autopsy results, which could either corroborate or contradict the official Tanzanian findings, are still pending. What we are sitting inside of right now is a case where every official door appears to be closing while every unanswered question remains wide open. And the person who was the last person with Ashlee, the last person to see her alive, the last person to know what was said during that argument, the last person who could tell Yolanda exactly how her daughter spent the last hours of her life, is back in America at an undisclosed location with no public plans to speak further. There is a psychological dimension to this story that the internet has been dissecting. Joe McCann is 45 years old. Ashlee Robinson was 31. He is described in court records as the founder and managing partner of investment and cryptocurrency entities. When his social media profiles went private and his profile picture updated shortly after Ashlee's death, many observers read that as someone managing perception rather than processing grief. When his first public statement arrived on the same day as his fiancé's funeral, a funeral he did not attend, many read that as a calculated move, not a spontaneous outpouring of pain. When his lawyer's narrative placed the responsibility for communication back on a grieving mother, many read that as deflection wrapped in legal language. None of those readings are proven facts. They are interpretations. But they are the interpretations of thousands of people who have watched every detail of this case closely, and they are not going away. What Ashlee's family needs going into this Mother's Day is not sympathy statements. It is not carefully worded press releases. It is not a lawyer explaining why Joe chose not to call. What they need is the hotel surveillance footage. What they need is the complete, official, unredacted autopsy results from both the Tanzanian investigation and their own independent examination. What they need is to understand what happened in that villa, in those hours, between the argument and the moment a hotel worker found their daughter unconscious. What they need is the engagement ring. What they need is her clothes, her perfume, her things, the last physical traces of who she was. And what they need is the answer to the question that Yolanda Endres has been asking since April 9th. What happened to my child? The surveillance cameras were rolling at the Zanzibar. That footage exists somewhere. Harry Robinson said it himself. There are cameras everywhere at that resort. If the authorities truly want the world to accept their conclusions, releasing that footage would go a long way. Its continued absence is one of the loudest silences in this entire case. What haunts the story is not just the tragedy of a 31-year-old woman losing her life. It is the image of her last Instagram post. Feeding a giraffe. Rose petals on the ground. Chapter 31, and I'm exactly where I need to be. She thought she was beginning something. She was in love. She was engaged. She was celebrating a birthday. She was building a life she was excited about. Her mother had seen her on FaceTime laughing. Her parents described her as a beacon of light, always smiling, never showing any indication that she wanted to harm herself. And then, within days, she was gone. And now, this Mother's Day, Joe McCann is free. He is home. He is at an undisclosed location preparing to get on with his life, as his lawyer so plainly put it. And Yolanda Endres is sitting with the weight of a grief that has no bottom in a country whose officials are still not talking, carrying an engagement ring that hasn't come home, waiting on autopsy results that haven't arrived, asking questions that haven't been answered. And her daughter's fiancé, the man who was supposed to protect her, the man who proposed to her in the middle of a safari in Africa, chose not to pick up the phone. The investigation is not closed. The truth has not been established. And Ashlee Jenae deserves better than the silence that surrounds her name right now. She deserves the full story. Her family deserves the full story. And if the answers exist, in a server room at the Zanzibar, in a pending autopsy report, in the memory of what was said during that final argument, then someone out there knows what really happened on April 8th. The question is whether they will ever be made to tell it. Rest in peace, Ashlee Jenae Robinson. This Mother's Day, we say her name.